Let's have a look, see what's new on Amazon Prime from the 17th of October to the 23rd of October 2016. First up is the first season of Off Season. This is a little drama centred around Cape Cod in the dead of winter, where intrigue follows a group of townspeople who discover a dead body and try to work out whether or not it was suicide. Season 8 of kids' TV show Rat-a-Tat has arrived. There's 13 episodes here about a daring house dog at war with some rats. High Riders is an action-adventure from 1978 about highway dragsters terrorising the roadways. I mean, just look at the poster art on this one. What's not to love? Old-fashioned car chases and over-the-top stunts. Brilliant. Five Nights at Freddy's sister location is a walkthrough of the game. It's an hour and 43 minutes long. Sounds like a feature film. It's a walkthrough. I'm doing what's new on Amazon Prime, aren't I? Not YouTube. Vampire Camp is a comedy horror film that's a feature-length comedy that brags that it won Best Feature Award at the 2013 Vampire Film Festival. Looks cheap and nasty, but has some pretty good reviews, to be honest. Maybe Tomorrow isn't a documentary about the littlest hobo. In fact, it's about three estranged friends who finally examine a long-forgotten crime and cover it up and how it affected the course of their lives. I wish it was about the littlest hobo. Ingrid Bergman, in her own words, is a feature-length documentary about the Swedish actress and her rise to fame. More about the woman as opposed to her celebrity status. This is a thoughtful and well-layered celebration of a talented actress who is becoming a forgotten icon. Wanderlust with Paul Rudd and Jennifer Aniston is a comedy about a couple who move out to the middle of nowhere to live off the land and be sort of hippie types. I've seen this and I remember nothing about it. That's a good seal of approval there. Amazon Prime do like to put in some alternative forms of entertainment, short films, documentaries, and I usually don't include them. However, this one I will say something about because it's 3 hours long. It's Insomnia, a sleep aid. It's a calming, naturally ambient sound collection without music for babies, children, and adults. It's an aid for men, women, and kids who have sleepless nights to fall asleep listening to the sounds of relaxing waterfalls, and can also be used for things like yoga, meditation, and other peaceful activity. Alternatively, you could put on my video about what's new in Amazon Prime. 3 Came Home is a wartime drama from 1950, chronicling the true story of Agnes Newton Keith's imprisonment in several Japanese prisoner of war camps in 1941 at the end of World War II. How she was separated from her husband and her young son, and the many difficulties she had to face. Sweet Poison is a TV movie from 1991 starring Stephen Bauer about a convict on the run from the law who kidnaps a couple who are on their way to a funeral. He finds out he's got more than he bargained for when he realises the man's sexy wife is falling for him. 59 Middle Lane is about a murderous love triangle that leaves adopted 10-year-old twins without parents. 10 years after the incident happens, at the age of 20, the twins decide to reach out and reunite with their biological Ukrainian family. Decent horror movie time on Amazon Prime with Poltergeist, the original 1982 horror comedy produced by Steven Spielberg about a family whose home is invaded by otherworldly forces. Call in some professionals to deal with it. This is a good old-fashioned 80s style horror film. It terrified me as a child. However, watching it again recently, I realised just how funny it actually is. It's got a lot of good laughs. Worth checking out if you haven't seen it yet. What is this? Dolphin Tale? Starring Harry Connick Jr., Ashley Judd, Chris Christopherson, Morgan Freeman, and directed by Charles Martin Smith. How have I never heard of this before? This is the story of a boy and a dolphin whose tail is caught in a crab trap. And believe it or not, the entire cast got back together again 3 years later for a sequel. What? Rising Undead is also known as Rise of the Undead. This is a typical zombie movie from 2005, and according to the reviews it has absolutely no redeeming factors and is just plain boring. Other folks have gone on to say steer clear of this crap, Boredom Rising, a pretentious load of crap, this cheese stinks, and one person who thought it was a creepy, sinister little flick. And according to the plot, the apocalypse has arrived. 7 strangers escape a fiery blast that has engulfed the city. Refuge is found in an abandoned government building. Trapped with nowhere to go, they soon realize that they are not alone. Something sinister hidden in the shadows is slowly killing them off one by one. A game of survival has begun. Become the hunter or become the hunted. The first season of Versailles has arrived. In 1667, 28-year-old all-powerful King of France Louis XIV decides to build the greatest palace in the world, Versailles. But draining budgets, affairs and political intrigues complicate things. A Walk Among the Tombstones is a 2014 thriller with Liam Neeson doing his Taken type thing. If you like that kind of film, this is one for you. He plays a private investigator who is hired by a drug trafficker to find out who kidnapped and murdered his wife. It's pretty darn good. It's better than the likes of Non-Stop and has some decent action sequences within. A fun Saturday evening view, if you ask me. Ordinarily I would pan this sort of thing, however, it's called Toxic Apocalypse, and one person has described it as street trash with a bit of Guy Ritchie-ness to it. Featuring gangsters, toxic hobos, shady agents, killer clowns, badly dressed, desperado chavs. Could this be an unheard-of gem? Probably not, but it's on my radar. Terminal Island. Yes, it's Terminal Island, a women in prison camp movie. It's very notable for one reason. It's one of Tom Selleck's first films, and worth checking out just for that. It's actually quite a good women in prison movie, if that's your thing. It's got a good amount of nudity and explosions. Check it out. The Girl in the Cornfield looks to be another low-rent horror film here on Amazon Prime, about 3 young women travelling along a dark country road who encounter a mysterious girl in a white dress who turns out to be far more than she seems. Looks cheap and nasty. And there's actually a bit of trivia on the IMDb that says that the director noticed the star of this film and thought she looked a bit like Ashley Bell, the star of The Last Exorcism, and cast her purely on that, not acting ability. So a surreal horror film called Delusion. 3 years after the death of Frank's wife, a mysterious woman appears. Their attraction grows. Frank struggles with reality and his own loss, and he tries to start over, not knowing his choices could lead him to his own downfall. You can watch it and let me know if it's any good. Season 1 of Artless is on Amazon Prime, about a group of teenagers who want to be unique and famous but don't always have the drive to get there. Sounds rubbish. Night of the Were-Rooster is not Poltergeist, or it doesn't even look to be on any level near Poltergeist. This is an action horror comedy about something is killing people in the woods. Something covered in feathers. That's all they're going to give you as a plot synopsis. I'm guessing it's a were-rooster. It's probably cheap and nasty. Ink from 2009. This has actually been on my to-watch list before. I can't remember where and why I didn't watch it. It's got some pretty good reviews, I have to say. It's about a mysterious creature known as Ink that steals a child's soul in the hope of using it as a bargaining chip to join the Incubi, the group of supernatural beings responsible for creating nightmares. It's described as It's a Wonderful Life meets Sin City, and it honestly looks like a very interesting film. Frame is a fantasy drama about 2 strangers who find themselves colliding in an impossible way. Alex is one works for a dangerous cartel, the other is a paramedic trying to save the world while running from her past. One person's described this as an outstanding piece of filmmaking. It's actually difficult to track down a negative review of this. The Legend of Black Annie is a film based on an urban legend. It starts in the late 60s when a group of boys accidentally kill a young girl. Her mother practices the art of voodoo and acts revenge upon them and anyone involved in the cover-up. A local college professor investigates the tale in an attempt to uncover the truth. Fairly rubbish reviews online. I can't say you should really bother yourself watching this sort of thing. Richie Rich, one of those films from the 90s involved in the rise of Macaulay Culkin, and indeed the fall of Macaulay Culkin. This is actually a bit of a cult classic amongst the youth of the time, a bit like, I guess, Space Jam or something like that. It's not great, but the youngsters might get a bit of a kick out of it. To be honest, there's far better things for them to be watching these days. A post-Private Benjamin, pre-Wildcats Goldie Hawn comedy called Protocol that I'd never actually heard of before, but I'd like to go and watch it now because it's the kind of thing that I do enjoy. A mainstream 80s comedy about the sweet, unsophisticated Sunny who is working as a cocktail waitress. She saves a visiting dignitary and as a reward gets a top office job in Washington. She has to fight against the devious protocol officer, but with her charms, she saves the day and then gets involved in an arms deal with an Arab country. Sounds entirely plausible for an 80s comedy. something along the lines of Brewster's Millions. There's probably a reason why I haven't heard of it before, but it's Goldie Hawn, so I'll probably give it a go. Young Adam looks to be one of those indie flicks that Ewan McGregor made in between the bigger flicks, where he tend to show his lad a lot too. This one's got Tilda Swinton and Peter Mullen in there as well, about a young drifter working on a river barge who disrupts his employer's lives while hiding the fact that he knows more about a dead woman found in the river than he admitted. Amazon original series for kids, Wish and Poof, about a little girl called Bianca who can do magic-y things. Fun time western starring Humphrey Bogart lookalike Lash LaRue, Pioneer Justice is the story of two characters who track down the leader of a group of varmints trying to drive the law-abiding ranches out of the far west. Uninvited looks like a ghastly tale from 1988 starring George Kennedy about a mutated cat that strays aboard a yacht owned by a wealthy criminal. Two beautiful women adopt the cuddly creature, unaware that the killer kitty houses a demon inside its mouth. Sounds awful, but to be entirely honest, it looks a lot more appealing than any of the other more modern horror dreck that Amazon Prime seems to be collecting. Mob Queen looks like a rather unfunny comedy from 2002, whereby in an effort to gain favour, two low-level gangsters hire a prostitute for their boss's birthday, but it turns out to be a rather bad move when the two discover that the beautiful hooker is actually a transvestite and the mob boss has fallen in love with her. Sounds and looks awful and disrespectful. 2 of the 5 Jack Reed movies are now available on Amazon Prime. I always remember these as a staple of any video store. They had a smattering of these taking up a number of different shelves. They were TV movies featuring Brian Dennehy as a tough detective called Jack Reed as he went out and battled the bad guys. The first one here, and third in the series, A Search for Justice, is about Jack Reed investigating the brutal murder of a stripper while he deals with corruption and bureaucracy in his own department. The second is Deadly Justice, the fourth and penultimate entry, about Reed taking a young woman into his care, only to find out that she is being targeted by unknown assassins. From what I believe, this is a fairly tight series, and whilst I haven't seen them, it's a series I would like to visit when I retire. More TV movie heaven, this time with Jeff Fahey. Every Woman's Dream, also starring Kim Cattrall, about a young woman who believes she has married the man of her dreams without suspecting her husband is leading a double life. When his lies go sour, he makes a deadly turn to a life of crime. Billed as a crime drama, this TV movie from the late 90s is actually a bit of a comedy as well, but just expect a little bit of skin and a great performance from Jeff Fahey. That remake of The Nightmare on Elm Street is on Amazon Prime, where they get rid of Robert Englund and put in Jackie Earle Haley, a competent actor, but the whole movie is just terrible. Don't go there. Ninjas versus Zombies, yet another versus movies out there. However, this one says it is a blood-soaked, hilarious geek fest. 3 lovable losers are granted the power of the ninja to defend the world against the zombie hordes and their evil master in this blood-soaked, laugh-out-loud action horror comedy. Apparently this is part of a Ninja versus trilogy, so there's going to be 3 films to avoid. Wild Bill is a British gangster drama directed by Dexter Fletcher about a dude out on parole after 8 years inside the joint. He returns home to find his now 11 and 15-year-old sons abandoned by their mother and fending for themselves. Actually, that plot description actually sounds quite interesting. First of 2 recommendations this week. It's Grizzly. This 18-foot tall, 2,000-pound sod is rummaging through a state park, rampaging for human prey, whilst the ranger and his men must stop the ensuing slaughter. Grizzly was one of the highest-grossing independent films in 1976, very much inspired by Jaws, and is actually pretty good. Doesn't get anywhere near the respect it deserves, and I find the trivia surrounding the sequel quite interesting, that stars Charlie Sheen and George Clooney, but they never quite finished the movie, but you can find it out there if you search hard enough. And the big recommendation, if you haven't already seen it, is Spotlight. This is a drama that tells the astonishing true story of the Boston Globe's Pulitzer Prize winning Spotlight team, who are investigative journalists who in 2002 shocked the world by exposing the Catholic Church's systematic cover-up of widespread paedophilia perpetrated by over 70 local priests. It went on to become a worldwide phenomenon, and the film was adorned with all kinds of awards, gravitas, and comes away with some of the most extreme emotional reactions from the audience. I implore you to watch this. So a few interesting things to sit down and watch on Amazon Prime this week, but be sure to check out what's new on Netflix. Take care now.